Back in May, I received a comment from a friend on a video that I had posted, and this is what he said. Could you do a lesson in open G? This seems to be the tuning I found to be most creative for me, but I'm having trouble finding chord charts. Because of this comment, I looked into open G tuning, and I ended up writing a short song, which I posted last week. This week, we're going to look at some of the basics of open G, and also some of the methods I used to start getting creative. Let's take a look. Before we even get started, we need to tune our guitar into open G tuning. My guitar is in standard tuning right now, and open G, starting from the 6th string right here, is actually D, G, D, G, B, D. You can do this quite simply by using an electronic tuner, tuning those strings down. All of them you need to tune down, by the way. Or you can do it by ear, which is what I'm going to do right now. So you just take that open D, and we need the 6th string and the 1st string, which are both E's, to go down to a D. So I'm just going to compare them and tune them down. So I'm going to pluck the open D string and the open E string. Get them both to D, and then I'll do the same with the 1st string here. Then we need the A string to be a G, and so I'm going to take the G string and pluck the A string with it and just tune it down until it's a G. Just kind of check those back again. And then the G's. And you might want to just check that B string. Sometimes when you loosen your guitar up, your strings up that much, things get a little out of whack. But that should be good. Sounds pretty good. Now that we're all tuned up, let's take a look at 3 ways to get creative with open G tuning. The first and most logical place to start is movable chords. If you know a few movable chords and you know the musical alphabet, you can play any chord that you want. Now before we get started, I just want to disclose how I figured out these chord shapes. When I first started looking into open G tuning, I made a connection. Fact is, open G tuning on the guitar is the exact same tuning as open tuning on the banjo. Fun fact, from time to time, Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones has been known to play a 5-string guitar. He just ditched the 6th string altogether, just take it off his guitar, and he played guitar banjo style, so to speak. I'm going to show you 3 basic movable chords for open tuning. These are all derived from banjo chords. I've made a chord chart, and it is on my Patreon site. There'll be a link in the description where you can go and download these chords. You should head on over there right now and become a patron. I'm going to show you each of these chords as a G, a C, and a D, because those are the 3 basic chords for your 1, 4, and your 5 in the key of G. And that'll also give you kind of an idea of how you can move them around. So the first one, let's just dig right in here. This is called open G tuning. And so if we just strum these open strings, that is in fact a G chord. So your first chord, your G, is just opening those. You could also do it on the 12th fret if you laid your finger across the 12th fret right there if you want, but that's not very fun. So the C is on the 5th fret doing the same thing. I'm just going to take my finger and lay it flat across the fret on the 5th fret, and that would be a C chord. And then if I go to the 7th fret, that would be my D chord. So I've got open G, a bar on the 5th fret for C, and a bar on the 7th fret for D. The second chord shape that we're going to use, it looks kind of like an F chord. I'm going to start it right here on the 3rd fret here. And so my index finger is on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and then my middle finger is the 4th fret of the 3rd string, ring fingers the 5th fret of the 4th string, and my pinky's on the 5th fret of the 1st string. Now that's your chord shape, and you can actually move that up and down the fretboard to get different chords. Right here, counting from my index finger, this is the 3rd fret, and that's how I'm going to count these frets for this. This is actually a G chord right there on the 3rd fret. And so I can include this open G string as well with it, and it sounds pretty good. If I move this up to the 8th fret right here, I can still include that G, but this is a C chord. The note G is in the C chord, so you can include it still. That'd be C. And then if you moved it up to the 10th fret here, that would be a D. Now I didn't include the G in that case because G is not in a D chord. You could use that open 6th string if you wanted. And that is your 2nd chord shape. Now all you have to do, I'm going to go back up to the original position I had here at the 3rd fret. All you have to do to get the 3rd shape that we're doing is take these 2 fingers, your index finger and your middle finger, and just swap them out. So actually I'm just going to take my middle finger and move it down to the 2nd string and move my index finger up to the 3rd string. And now I have, I just basically just see that there. I just kind of flopped it around. Anyways, I'm going to move that. I'm going to go ahead and switch it. And I'm going to move that on up here. So now my index finger is on the 7th fret. And that would be a G chord again. If I move that up to where my index finger is on the 12th fret, that would be a C chord again. And then if I go back to the 2nd fret, that would be a D chord. And I want to go back to the C chord for just 1 second and just point out, if this is the 12th fret, you could also play this by dropping this finger. You could move this back and play it as an open chord right there on the 1st and 2nd frets. And it sounds pretty nice too if you don't want to play clear up here. So those are your 3 basic movable chord shapes. If you memorize those, and then if you know your musical alphabet, you can basically play any chord you want in open G tuning. The next thing we'll look at are voicings and open strings. One of the methods that I used while writing Powder Mix is voicings and open strings. Putting that simply, I just took little 2-finger chords and used the open strings around them that sounded good and kind of invented stuff. So, for example, that or this. There's a lot of different finger combinations you could come up with that sound quite nice. You kind of just got to trust your ears. These are 6 of the chords that I used in this particular song. I'm going to start up here and kind of first just show you 2 fingerings that I used. So the first fingering is using my index and my middle finger, my index being on the 2nd string. So I'm going to put my index on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, and then I'm going to put my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. That's actually the first chord that I have. Now the other fingering would be just lifting up your index finger and throwing in your ring finger on the same fret. Here, if you listen to that, that actually doesn't sound very good in this context, but that's the fingering for it. You just throw your finger down on the same fret as your middle finger, just on the 2nd string. So the 6 chords go like this. Starting at the 1st fret, you have that first fingering, index finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. Now I'm going to move up to the 5th fret and put my middle finger on the same fret on the 2nd string. That's another one of the chords that I used. And then I just slid that up to the 7th fret. And And then I moved up to the 9th fret, but I switched to the other fingering again. So I'm using my index finger here again. And then I moved to the 10th fret, but back to that, the 2 middle fingers, my middle finger and my ring finger. And the 12th fret. So those are the chords that I used, and it kind of went something like this in that middle chordal section of Powder Mix. And I figured those out just by, like I said before, just listening. And you'll hear the ones that sound nice and the ones that don't sound nice, and you kind of just roll with it. Another method that I used was single fretted notes in combination with open strings. In the case of Powder Mix, I just used fretted notes on the 4th string, the D string, and the 2 strings beside it. So the 5th string and the 3rd string. I used a little picking pattern, something like this. And then I just kind of started finding the notes that sounded good. Like, that doesn't sound very good. So I ended up with something like this. I've got this. That's the 5th fret, and then the 7th fret, the 9th fret, 10th, and the 12th. I also kind of found up here a nice little run. I couldn't quite get that in the song, but I thought it sounded kind of cool, almost like a blues turnaround. Anyways, you could do this in conjunction with any strings and fretted notes. You just use your ears once again and kind of trust it. But those are the ones that I used, which I thought sounded kind of nice. And that gives you that beginning part there, that That's it for now, folks. I hope these few examples help you get started in being creative in open G tuning. I've left a link to my video of Powder Mix down here in the description. And also, there's a downloadable tablature version of this song if you want to learn it on my Patreon page. Also, link in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend.